Welcome to Backstreet Gossip, news talk, current events, and political commentary with your host, Uncle Ronnie. And now here's your host, Uncle Ronnie.
Well, welcome to the show tonight. It's another cool day here in Phoenix. Not too bad. And our guest tonight has just spent some time up in Provo, Utah. And when we chatted, it was snowing up there.
Yeah.
So we got Ben Wick, Dr. Bonnie Wick's husband. How's that for an introduction?
Yeah.
And we have Ray Michaels is on an assignment tonight. He has got a lot of things on his plate, and he'll be reporting to us either later next week or next Monday for sure. Any rate, before we start, just a couple of things. If you're not watching this show live, you can catch it on YouTube, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that you can do is go to YouTube and just type in 1776 Productions. That's easy if you're here in the United States. You know what that means. And if you're watching from other places in Europe, Africa, and Asia, which a lot of you are, we would recommend that if you want to see the show later on, that you would go to YouTube and once again type in 1776 Productions, and then comes the good part, press on video, and then you'll get to see all of the shows that Mr. O'Connor and Neil have worked on over the past many months. So, any rate, right now we want to talk about. We've got a really super show tonight. We're going to be talking to some people that deal with the voting issues here in Arizona, the audits. And we're also going to be talking about some issues with border security. But there's another thing on the horizon, and I am shocked at this. It's H.R. 1, and many of you have heard of it. If you don't know what H.R. 1 is, Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? This is one of the most hideous and insidious bills that I have ever heard come out of the legislature.
Right. There's a couple of bills. There's H.R. 1 and H.R. 5 that, in essence, are going to complete the coup, complete the fundamental transformation of America that Barack Obama promised in 2008 to transform America into not America. So,
okay, what do you mean not America? That's kind of a big statement. What does not America mean?
So if you transform something into something else, it changes it so it is no longer what it used to be. Okay. So a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it will never be a caterpillar again. So what they want to do is take the butterfly that's free and turn it back into the caterpillar. And put it into a cocoon, and that's part of what this H.R. 1
And then, of course, we have a Constitution, and that's why we've asked you to be here, because you really understand the American Constitution.
Right.
So tell us what's going on here.
All right, so we're going to jump
This is
right
scary
into
because
it.
you got a lot of pages there.
Yeah, so I have one analysis of H.R. 1, which concludes with, in the end, H.R. 1 may come down to a test of whether our Constitution still protects us from tyranny. So the question in your mind should be, how can a piece of paper protect me against the tyrant who has all of the power?
Yes.
Okay? Answer is, it can't. And that's what the founders knew. They said this Constitution only works for an honest, moral, educated people. Unfortunately, they have changed our people into not educated, not moral, and not honest. And so that's part of the problem. So this bill here completely changes the way we vote. So let me go over it real quick because...
Was this a Voter Rights Act?
No, this has
HR,
nothing
by the way,
to do.
stands for House Resolution 1.
Yeah.
And this is the first resolution, I believe, under President Biden.
Yes, of course it is, because this... Anyway, so here, I'll just give a brief summary here. So, same-day voter registration, universal vote by mail, limits limits the removal of voters from rolls, independent redistricting commissions that are unelected, securing election systems by the federal government, controlling all cybersecurity for the election by the federal government, disclosure of campaign fundraising, alternative campaign fundraising system for only certain offices, rewrite the ethics code of conduct for senators and congressmen. The president and vice president will release 10 years of tax returns, but only for certain candidates. Okay, here's
Whatever happened to the equal opportunity under the law?
Again, remember, Ron, that the people have to implement the Constitution. These are the people who are in office who have to implement and enforce the Constitution. So
at least they took that oath to do so. But this sounds like
Right.
this sounds like it usurps the authority of the states for sure.
It only gets
and
worse.
centralizes.
It only gets worse.
Okay.
So instead, they focused on manipulating the electoral system itself and the election system, creating and exploiting ballot uncertainty and potential fraud. H.R. 1 would federalize all significant election law, incorporating the most fraud-friendly aspects that made the 2020 election so suspect. H.R. 1 blocks attempted reforms at mail-in voting. The bill prohibits states from requiring any form of identification at all in order to receive a ballot. It removes and prohibits requiring any witness or any kind of authorization to authenticate the ballot. The voter rolls used for mailing would be protected from all purging. In other words, these voter rolls would never change. It never get smaller. They would only enlarge. Ballot harvesting ratcheted up even more opportunities for fraud. Here's some other things. States would also be mandated to accept same-day registration. Virtually any effort by poll workers to check ID and verify that a vote is legally cast is prohibited. Okay, don't say anything yet because I know what's going through your mind. Forced disclosure would be further hamstrung by the right. Okay, so in the end, H.R. 1 may come down to a test of whether the Constitution still protects us from tyranny. But bottom line, Ron, as you probably have already come to the conclusion, virtually anything goes. We are prohibited from verifying and authenticating a truthful vote. So in other words, in 2022, if this bill passes, either we have to cheat or we lose.
Wow.
So here, let me give you a scenario. So here's the scenario that this allows. You could go to somebody's house, knock on their door, and they open the door and they say, "Sir, would you like to vote? I have a ballot for you." And if he says yes, and you say, "Are you registered to vote?" "No." "Well, good. Here, you could register with me right now." So then you register him to vote, and then you say, "Okay, would you like me to help you fill out your ballot?" Okay? Because it gives the authorization for poll workers to help people fill out their ballots. So you fill the ballot out and you say, "Oh, by the way, I'll go ahead and turn this in for you too." Right? So you go home and you put it in your ballot box. And the next day you go back to the same house, talk to the same man. Oh, so he's already registered to vote. Okay? He's already registered to vote. You say, hey, I don't think you may have filled out your ballot correctly yesterday. Let's go over it again. And he fills it out again. And then you take that ballot home. There is no check to say however many votes, however many ballots that you can come up with and fill out, you can turn in.
Oh,
there is
God.
no authentication. And it says it prohibits anybody from authenticating the ballot. So in other words, it is basically making our election meaningless. Okay, so here's another thing. Making lying legal is my comment. Making lying legal destroys justice, and without justice, the government is meaningless and a failure. So the Constitution doesn't protect anyone. Only the people who cherish liberty over safety protect each other from tyranny. You actually have to believe the Constitution and do it in order for it to mean anything. Right now, as Woodrow Wilson said, we have to get beyond the moral principles of the Declaration, and we have to change the Constitution into a living document. Well, basically what this does is it makes the Constitution meaningless. So here's the thing. That's the good news, what I just told you. Okay? That's the good news.
Okay, bring me the bad news.
All right, so I was startled because I had certain assumptions about elections, and we'll go over those, right? And I read Article 1 and Article 2 10 times this afternoon, and I was flabbergasted that my assumptions were all wrong. So one of the things I assumed was that the first Tuesday after the second Monday is the day we vote. I thought that was in the Constitution. It's not. All right? The other thing is, I thought that, as it says in Section 4, Article 1, Section 4, the times, the places, and the manner of holding elections shall be prescribed in each state by its legislature. So I thought, okay, that's great.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
It's not?
That is, the word for word, the Constitution. But then I stopped reading after that until today. And then it says, but... Okay, hold on to your seat.
Okay.
Congress may at any time, the U.S. Congress right now, may at any time, by law, make or alter such regulations that the state legislatures have put in place.
That's actually in the Constitution?
Yes. I read it like 10 times because I could not believe that is actually in there. He says it says the only exception is the place where you vote for senators. All right. Each house then will be the judge of elections, returns, or member qualifications.
Boy.
So in other words,
this is troubling.
It is troubling. It's very troubling, right? So what I do know, though, and you're going to get into this later with Liz, is Article 2, Section 1 states, each state will appoint a number of electors in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct. And we all know Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan were not done that way 2020. So the 2020 election was invalid. It was an invalid election.
Well, a lot of people have said that.
Right.
A lot of people have been cut off of social media for saying that.
Right. So here's another thing. So again, where does it say the first Tuesday after the second Monday?
I thought that was in the Constitution.
That's not in the Constitution either. But in 1794, from 1794 to 1845, federal law allowed each state within a 34-day window to pick what date their election was going to happen. So then it had to be on a Tuesday, though. I don't know why. They just thought Tuesday was a good day. So what happened was they invented the telegraph. So they said, well, we can't have State A knowing that State B has already voted and what they voted, because you could send it by telegraph now. Mm-hmm. And so they said, we have to come up with a new way. So in 1845, that's when they mandated a uniform date, the first Tuesday after the second Monday. It is election day now. Election day is always 29 days before the first Wednesday in December, because that's when it has to be certified. All right.
By the Congress.
Yes, by Congress. So bottom line is the date is set, and it is one day. So the only constitutional check we have on this fiasco is that everything must be done in one day, but it doesn't say that a state of Arizona with 8 million residents can't turn in 10 million votes. There's nothing in the Constitution prohibiting that.
But isn't it true, though, that the Supreme Court had said one person, one vote? So if you have 8 million persons,
but you're not allowed to you're not allowed to authenticate whether that person exists. You're not allowed to purge the voter roll. So say 100 people die this year. Next year, they're not allowed to be purged from the rolls, according to H.R. 1. The next year, all the dead people are not allowed to be purged. They're never allowed to purge the rolls. Okay. So the amount of ballots that are printed will continue to grow.
Are you finished with the yellow sheet? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back item by item here and discuss this, because this is frightening.
It is.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why when you vote, you want to make sure that there's opposition candidates. Like right now, we have a situation where we have the Democrats control the House, they control the Senate, they control the presidency, and they can pretty much do whatever they wish.
Yeah. And so the only thing that this law does, it applies to federal elections only. So the only check that we have is to secure our state vote. And I would definitely say don't do it on the first Tuesday after the second Monday. We have to change the date we vote so that we can determine and authenticate the votes for the state offices.
The one thing that...
Because as we saw, the Republican governors of Arizona, Georgia, and I think Michigan or Pennsylvania, all the Republican state legislators and governors in the 5 battleground states hid under their beds and cried mommy.
Essentially, yes. There were very few that had the cojones to step up to the plate. Now, I've always been opposed to this early voting, these where they say, okay, you can get in. When they had absentee ballots, I used to be an auditor traveling across the country, and many times I would not be here on Election Day, but I did have the opportunity to go to the recorder's office and vote early. Now, there was a good reason for that, because I wasn't going to be here. But now they say, well, we're going to have these, however long, I think it was maybe 3 weeks, we're going to have that because we just want everybody to vote. But the concept of everybody voting I think is fraught with some difficulties. Everybody should not vote if they're not educated in the process. And as you said, our founders said you had to be a moral people. How can you vote on an issue when you have no concept of what the issue is?
I don't know. Congress does it all the time.
Well, I think you're right. So, let's go over these things one at a time. And read them. I think if I'm not mistaken, everybody out there is as shocked at H.R. 1 as I was when you read the details.
When I read this through 10 times because I couldn't believe my eyes, and I got out my Heritage Guide to the Constitution, read through the 10 pages they had on this section, and pretty much that's what it says. And so we have been fortunate that we've actually had somewhat moral people running our elections for the last 200 years. Otherwise, this could have happened a long time ago.
Has some of that changed?
In fact, Alexander Hamilton questioned this very clause when he said this gives the Congress the right to perpetuate their own selves in office for life.
And of course, the whole purpose of our Constitution was to limit the government.
Limit government, right?
Okay, item 1. Let's go through. What is item 1 here?
Item 1: same day voter registration, universal vote by mail, and limits the purging of voters.
Oh boy! Well, first of all, if you can register on the first day, what gives anybody the impression that you've educated yourself?
Okay, so
if you haven't prepared yourself ahead of time to actually vote.
Okay, so you wouldn't even elect the president of your kindergarten class this way, because in order to register someone to vote, you're not allowed to ask them for any identification, so you don't even know who these people are. They can just hi, I'm Mickey Mouse. I want to vote today. Oh, and because H.R. 5 gives me the right to self-identify as something else, tomorrow I'll be Minnie Mouse and I'll register as Minnie Mouse.
Okay, and you can't purge the files?
No, never.
So that really leaves it open to long after you're dead, you can still select
That's right.
officers.
That's right. You can keep voting indefinitely.
Even after you're dead. or somebody can vote in your name because you're still.
You don't
registered.
have to have a name to vote. You can just make something up. There's no authentication of the vote.
Okay,
of the name.
Next item.
Okay, next item. Independent redistricting commissions. Wow, we've seen how that's worked for us
It has not worked
in
well.
Arizona. I know Randy's sitting right over there. We discussed that the last time he was here, right?
It has not worked
So
well.
they want to make this the rule for every single federal election.
It has
So
become.
what is who's going to be on this independent one? They're probably not going to allow us to have identification for them either.
It has become a political football for sure. This whole process, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and an independent, I don't know in a political arena how you could really be independent. I don't think you can. I think it's impossible to be independent.
Yeah, how's that work for the city of Phoenix, where we went with a Republican mayor and all Republican city councilmen to where now where they're almost all Democrats? How'd that work when they weren't, because they don't let you identify. So what they do is they run and they tell you,
Oh yeah, in Phoenix
we love
you don't.
you.
In Phoenix you
we
don't.
love you, Ron.
You
Vote
don't.
for
You
me.
don't run as a Republican or a Democrat. You run as.
I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I just want to
nonpartisan.
love you, Ron. I'll mow your lawn,
What a
I'll
guy.
buy you a new house.
Until you're elected, and then, and then they don't mow my lawn.
I'll give you light rail. I'll go right by your house. I'll
oh,
take
yeah,
you to
that's-
the grocery.
that's
In
good.
fact, I'll bring you the groceries.
30 was it $33 billion worth of light
Just
rail?
don't forget, Ron, that I love you, man. And
Okay,
buy
item
my
item
Subaru.
2. Let's not get mushy here.
Okay, that's the redistricting commission. So anyway, as we know in Arizona, it doesn't work. It's a fraud. Okay, securing election systems is all done by the DOJ.
Oh, that's
And who is it? Oh, wait, it's Merrick Garland,
Merrick Garland.
that's running the DOJ now. So he gets to certify every election for the next 4 years.
and under Obama, the Eric Holder was quoted as saying, "I'm Obama's wingman."
And
So in
the,
other words, he's not independent.
the federal government gets to control the cybersecurity. And guess what? I think they're going to hire Mark Zuckerberg to do that.
Gee. Oh boy! Well, if you remember the problems they had with Obamacare and trying to develop that system and keep it so that your medical records weren't public, and of course they are once you put
Right.
it on. Okay,
So-
so we know that's a
So
problem.
they have this in there about disclosing campaign fundraising. So I really would like to see who is giving, the money to these campaigns. But what they've done, and they did it in California, is in fact, of all things, the CEO of Firefox, which is a whatever, search engine or whatever
Search
they
engine,
call
yeah.
it, right? So he was outed because he gave money for the Defense of Marriage Act in the state of California, and so he lost his job over that. So they will target people and companies who give money to non-preferred candidates, and they will target them for boycotting, for shaming, for rioting in front of your house. They'll send Antifa, they'll send Black Lives Matter to your house if you give too much money to the wrong candidates. Oh, wait. I think in 1933 they were called brown shirts in Germany.
Oh wow!
Okay. This basically authorizes this. And basically what I would say is boycotts matter. And the people that tell you don't boycott are crazy. We need to boycott the enemy. Stop giving them money. The only way Mark Zuckerberg's not going to be allowed to give $350 million to Detroit, Michigan to fix the vote is if he doesn't have $350 million. Take his money away by not spending your money with him. All right, so another one. They want to rewrite the ethics code of conduct for all senators and congressmen.
Oh boy, they don't even uphold the current standards.
It's because they don't, in order to be a hypocrite, in order to violate an ethics code, you actually have to believe something is true. The only thing they believe is true is we take the power to beat you. Therefore, we are true and you are false.
Who was the author of this thing? Is this a Pelosi issue? Or was there a committee that wrote
Again,
this?
remember, Obamacare, Pelosi said, I'll read it after we pass it.
Yeah.
I doubt seriously if she can write a complete sentence. She certainly can't speak a complete sentence. These bills are all written by professional lawyers that are paid to do this. Mm-hmm. They're paid operatives. So they're the staff members. They're the swamp. These are the swamp monsters write these bills. Swamp monsters. Okay, you need to use that term from now on. Swamp monsters. They're the ones that write these bills. All right. The president and vice president must release 10 days of tax returns, but only for certain candidates.
Well, first of all, I was always under the impression that your tax returns were between you and the IRS and no one else. That's been pretty much my beliefs on that, and I think
right.
that has been the standard. Unfortunately, that has gone by the wayside. And if you want to make your tax returns public, that's your business, but you don't have to, in my opinion.
Right. So here's some more.
And then the other thing is, for some candidates, what is that about?
Again, it's all about power. This is all about power. It has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with liberty. It has nothing to do with justice. It has to do with, I'm in charge, you're not. What did Obama say in 2008, 9, 10, and 11? We won. Get over it.
Yeah.
That's their attitude.
Well, the
That's
thing
their
is,
code of ethics.
in a country that talks about equality, where's the equality in you must turn in your tax returns, but I don't have to? Where's the equality in that?
Okay, Ron, you haven't caught the subtle change of terminology. They don't talk about equality anymore. They talk
I
about.
caught that, but I mean,
they talk
I
about
still
equity.
believe.
They talk about equity. They don't talk about equality.
Well, being an accountant, equity is money. It's not equality. It's
right.
money.
That's not the way they use the term. So anyway.
Well, they make up the definitions of the terms that are used, and that's very troubling. And
right.
But let's go on here, because this is I don't know if you folks at home are feeling the pain, but I sure am.
I'm surprised that I've been able to not shout. Everybody tells me not to talk too loudly, but I've been under control, even though maybe because I got all my shouting and screaming at the walls of my room today.
While you were studying this.
I mean, I spent 3 hours going over and over and over this, trying to find some way around this. Instead, they focus on manipulating the election system itself, creating and exploiting our ballot uncertainty. That's what they did. H.R. 1 would federalize all significant election law, incorporating the most fraudulent aspects. And listen to this term, incorporating fraudulent aspects into election law. So my wife, Dr. Wick there, told me that if fraud is legal, then if we do fraud, we're technically not breaking the law. So you either cheat and do fraud, or you're going to lose in 2022.
Ben, you're a school teacher, okay? Now, I realize that you're not an English teacher, but
well, actually, I was at one time.
Were you really?
Yes.
You know, I think words have meanings, and the meanings have been totally changed since I went to school. I mean, these terms now are not what I learned them to be. Like equity is money. It's not equality.
Well, see, our young people have been conditioned by colleges to understand truth as just a social construct. So therefore, there is no such thing as a definition of a word. That the words are only social constructs by those who are in power to oppress other people. So now they are in power, so now they're going to use the power by changing the definition of words to oppress us, right? So they are the oppressors, and I want them to stand up and admit that, right? That they make these people and kids stand up in classrooms to admit that they are oppressors. I want them to admit that they're oppressors. When the Supreme Court can change the definition of the word marriage, what other words can't they change the definition of?
Well, this is something that I've noticed in my lifetime. I thought when I was going through school that the words and everything were concrete. I can use a number of words. The one that I will use, and I don't want to be called a sexist, but is the word gay. Gay used to mean happy. It didn't mean that you had a relationship with a person of the same sex.
Let me ask you a question, Ron. What did woman believe? What did the word woman mean when you were growing up in school?
Opposite of a male was a good start.
Now, neither term means anything.
No, we have many genders instead of male and female. Created he, them, as the Bible says. He only created two genders.
Okay, so
let's go on here, though.
So anyway, HR 1 blocks attempted reforms at mail-in voting. So whatever. It basically, this is what it does to our elections right here. That's it. So if we allow this to go through, it's over. So we started out with the only way this works is if moral, religious, and educated people, right? Moral meaning I believe in truth, absolute truth, not a social construct of truth. So in other words, we have to have a moral people. Oh, wait a minute. They have a bill for that too. It's called HR 5, the Equality Act. Ron? Basically, this prohibits us from living our moral truth.
Well, they've thought of everything,
Yes,
haven't they?
they want to remove the Judeo-Christian moral ethic from the society of America by law. And this all started with the concept of hate crimes, right? That was the foot in the door. And people thought that that was okay. Well, now they're reaping what they sowed. They sowed the wind and they're reaping the whirlwind with HR 5. Basically takes the Judeo-Christian moral ethic and throws it away. This is a complete secularization of society. No longer will you be allowed to live your faith outside the door of your house.
Oh, gosh. One of the things, and I don't know that you've covered this yet in there. Now, being a school teacher, you know what a 16-year-old, what their developmental stage is in terms of their ability to think rationally and make decisions based on what I would consider experience, because you don't have that much experience when you're 16. But they're allowing 16-year-olds to vote. And by the way, you're also registered automatically when you turn 16 to vote.
But to be quite honest, Ron, you're not allowed to ask them their age. Because they don't have to give you any identification or authentication as to who they are.
Oh, boy.
So,
excuse me, Neil, can you see if our next guests are here?
So, here, yeah. So here's the thing. A 16-year-old may be more prone to make decisions emotionally rather than rationally because they haven't trained their minds yet. But the one thing I will tell you about 16-year-olds is they are more honest than adults. Because they haven't learned how to lie as good yet.
You can tell when they're lying.
You can be more real. You can have a better relationship with a 16-year-old than you can adult. It's a more trusting relationship. Mm-hmm. The problem is all of our 16-year-olds are being coerced and indoctrinated, and so.
Well, you being a school teacher, and I've said this many times, is they don't teach you. They teach you what to think, not how to think.
Well, they don't even do that anymore. They don't do anything. They teach you how to feel. They don't teach you how to think.
So your emotions are the ones
Yes.
that actually run things.
I would say that the two things that we need to do, number one is this election thing doesn't affect our state elections, so we need to clean up our state elections and change the date we vote on so that we can have a pure voting roll and do that properly. We can still do that in the state of Arizona, but we have to have the legislatures get a backbone and in order to do that. The other thing we need to do is we need to reestablish basically small groups of people who discuss moral issues and how to frame things in a moral way. And I just came across this book called Live Not by Lies, which is, I would say, any right-thinking, freedom-loving American needs to get this book today. Written in 2020 by Rod Dreher. He interviewed dozens of former Eastern Bloc Soviet Christians who came out of the Soviet Union and Czechoslovakia and Poland, and how they survived and how they kept their sanity and how they kept their morality. And this phrase comes from Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Oh, yes.
We all know who he was.
He was a dissident.
He wrote an essay
Soviet
called Live Not by Lies, and so he's using that as the title of this book, is that one of the things, even no matter what they do to you, as long as you stand for the truth, it will affect somebody, even if you die or go to prison or are tortured or whatever. The fact that somebody said no, the fact that somebody refused to wear the mask tells people that there's something fishy about this, especially people around you. When you refuse to wear the mask, you stand for the truth. You live not by lies. And it sends a message to everybody around. The thing about living by lies, which this fraudulent voting system is, and without any moral truth, H.R. 5 removes morality from our society. The only true way people can see truth is through you. All right? So you have to live your life not by lies, and you may have to sacrifice status. You may have to sacrifice money. You may have to sacrifice your life, your freedom. But people will know, and you can teach people, even if you go to prison, teach them the truth.
Okay, we're almost ready for the next segment here, so I want to cut to the quick here.
Right.
Let me ask you this. What are the chances of this being passed by the House, the Senate, and signed by the President?
I believe that it's pretty much a slam dunk that the House will pass it and that the President will sign, or the pretender will sign it.
But it has to go through the Senate.
That's the issue, right?
Now, they still can filibuster, correct?
Yes. But that would be, they would have to filibuster for 2 straight years.
Okay, so they can stop this bill.
If they can have somebody stand up 24/7 for 2 straight years.
No, what I'm saying, it's a
That's
filibuster.
what means filibuster. Filibuster means you get the floor and you don't stop talking.
But they still have the 60 vote rule there. Is that correct? I think
no.
it is. No, I don't think they were able to stop that 60 vote rule.
For ending filibusters?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's why they were able to get these judges for Trump through. At least in the
but that was
confirmation.
a different process, though, the judicial versus legislation.
Yeah, but so it just depends upon stamina, and it depends upon finding one Democratic senator who you can persuade to stand for truth.
Well, has been a couple right now. Actually, believe it or not, at one time, and I don't know where this is right now, is our own Senator Kirsten Sinema, a Democrat, has kind of balked at some of this thing. And
right.
Senator Manchin was another one from
right. They've made
West
public
Virginia.
statements, but when the rubber met the road, they have yet to change.
Well, I just read today that Manchin was going to, but I did read yesterday that he was going to cave, and then I read today that he's not going to cave. So
we don't know. So the only sure way to do it, bottom line, is to play their game, and that's called force.
Yeah. Any rate, we're gonna have to move along here. We've got another segment. Can you stick around for that? We're gonna play musical chairs. We'll probably put you over to, I shouldn't say to my left, because one thing is, Ben is not a leftist.
You'll be next to my right.
I'll be the right of Ben Wick. So I think I hear the music playing. Is that what I hear here in the? I do hear that. Okay. I thought it was just me. At any rate, don't go away. We're going to be here with Liz Harris. A lot of you are waiting for that. It's going to be exciting. And we're going to also have the former chairman of the GOP here, Randy Pullen. And it's going to be really exciting coming up. If this might have depressed you, the other one is going to be exciting. So don't go away. We'll be right back on Hub Radio.